Let's go and try to get that next guest, Jake James, up in the box. This guy is possibly like a 14-year-old. His bio is like football for life. So we got to double check that age. How old are you?
I am 22.
Very nice, man. You're a big football fan?
I am.
What are your thoughts on the CU Buffs?
Not that kind of football. I'm a NFL.
Oh, okay. You're an NFL guy. College football's a lot more entertaining, let me tell you. First and foremost, Amy, thank you so much for the $10 over on PayPal. I do really appreciate you for the love, Amy. Now, Jake, do you support Trump? Are you MAGA?
Absolutely.
All right, why is that?
Because I support his tariffs because it is unfair that other countries can do it on us, but we can't do it on them.
Okay, Jake. So a couple things here. I kind of disagree with tariffs across the board, but here's what I will say. When other countries tariff us, it maybe reduces our exports a little bit, but when we tariff other countries, it like sends us into a recession, cuts $10 trillion off of the stock market, and like bankrupts our own exporters because then greater trade wars are started. Tariffs are not a good tool to negotiate better trade agreements with other countries. They're quite brash and very abrasive. If we want other countries to reduce their tariffs on us, we should probably just diplomatically negotiate with them.
Well, I disagree with that, but all I gotta say is that Charlie Kirk will beat you in the debate, and that's all I gotta say.
Jake,
He will beat you in the debate, and he already did.
do you know what I debated him on?
It doesn't matter. He will beat you in the debate.
Okay. All right, Jake. Well, I guess I'll be the underdog of the event. Gotta prove everyone wrong. JK. Fun fact: Charlie Kirk is actually not a good debater. If you compare like I'm even gonna use somebody else from the right just to show you guys that this isn't coming from my own bias. If you compare Charlie Kirk to Ben Shapiro, it's night and day, bro. Ben Shapiro is, I'll admit it, a good debater. Ben Shapiro is probably the most intelligent people that the right has. All right. If you compare Ben Shapiro to Charlie Kirk looks like a child. I'm not even joking. I talked to them both. It was night and day. What's going on, Brendon? Do you support Trump?
Yes, sir.
All right. Why is that?
He is a great president.
Why is that?
The way he's doing with the economy, I absolutely agree with it. He's bringing business back to America.
Okay, I don't think that we could be bringing business back to America when our GDP is getting cut by 4% in one financial quarter, and the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell's like, oh my God, GDP growth is going to be negative for quite a while. And then Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are like, there will be a recession this year. That's not super good for domestic production.
You're a businessman yourself, Dean. Look what you're doing right now. You're doing it right in America. Like
So-
you are quite literally on TikTok promoting your brand right now. And by allowing these tariffs, other companies are being forced to manufacture in America, which brings more money in.
Okay, so are you... but the way we'd bring more money in is if... Okay. I'm sorry.
Is you have more
Sometimes-
businesses open up in America because it's cheaper to...
Sometimes guests just say things that perplex me because the last point I made just completely refutes and disproves what you're saying and you ignore it. So I think at this point, I'm just going to kind of go ahead and repeat what I already said. So right now, the tariffs have proved to be very bad for domestic output. The reason why I say that is because they've just destroyed consumer confidence and the predictiveness of U.S. markets, which means people are pulling their money out of stocks and kind of just hoarding it and keeping it to themselves. This has led to like huge financial institutions like JP Morgan predicting a recession this year. And all that a recession is like negative GDP growth. But of course, if there's more companies doing better here, we'd see like quicker positive GDP growth. So it's just like the current macroeconomic data that we have, as well as the trends in which are expected by financial institutions, as well as the Federal Reserve, completely contradict what you're saying. Thank you so much for the galaxy. I appreciate that. No, I'm sorry. That took me like a little bit to kind of figure out how to word because I feel like I already explained this. You know?
No, sorry, I wasn't in your live stream. I just barely kind of joined up. I wasn't like here for all of it. I haven't been watching the whole time.
No worries. I was saying, like, I already explained this to you. Like, this was the first thing that I'd said in your response, in my response to you originally. But I mean, yeah, how do you feel about that? You know, if you're saying that it's just going to bring more business to America, well, we just simply don't see that. Currently, the macroeconomic
Well,
trends
not yet.
would
That stuff
indicate
doesn't
that
happen
business
overnight.
is-
Like you
that
kind of
business
have
is
to
slowing
like
in
let it
America.
happen, right? Right, Dean? Like you kind of have to let it like some time behind it, right? With anything, and like
Well,
when
I
the
also
world
just
when
I just think that's a cope. Like, I don't think that. Okay, go ahead and explain to me how tariffs will increase domestic production of goods in the long terms, and the domestic production of goods in the long term.
when these big, like, just for example, right? Okay, like car companies, you're no longer like shipping them overseas. So now these car companies have to build their warehouses and build their manufacturing warehouses here in America. That takes time to get these built now. That takes money and time to get these built. But as soon as they're built, then now they're looking for employers. They're looking, I mean, employees. They're looking for people to come in and work, right? And so now you're getting Americans working in these warehouses and in these manufacturing facilities that bring in money and circulating in America.
Okay, so there's three things I'm going to say to disprove this. The first thing that I'm going to say is this: can we agree that Donald Trump is using these tariffs as leverage to negotiate better trade agreements with other countries?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, if we're going to be using these tariffs as leverage to negotiate better trade agreements with other countries, we'd have to be like willing to let go of the tariffs if we could achieve that a better trade deal, right?
I agree, but that's the reciprocal tariffs, right? That's already happening.
One moment. So if he is using these tariffs as a tool to negotiate better trade agreements, they're not permanent, okay? And nobody has confidence in the fact that they're here to stay, correct?
Sorry, repeat that.
So because he's using these tariffs as a way to negotiate trade agreements with other countries, the tariffs are not permanent, and nobody has confidence that those tariffs are here to stay, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the country, I guess, and what's negotiated, right?
I mean, I'd say for any negotiation to take place, nobody can have confidence that they're here to stay, because if our tariffs on other countries were confidently there to stay, well, then the other countries would have no reason to negotiate a trade agreement with us. So because he's trying to use them to negotiate with all countries, none of these tariffs are confidently here to stay. So what does that mean for like manufacturing inside of America in the long term? Well, these companies that are currently running their operations outside of this country would have to spend billions of dollars to build manufacturing plants here, and that'd take like 3 to 6 years to do. So these other producers outside of America would have to have confidence in the fact that our tariffs on whatever country they're producing in right now are there to stay. But we just agreed that they're not, which means that no, we will not have manufacturers spending billions of dollars to build manufacturing plants here because the tariffs are not confidently there to stay.
Well, but isn't that a good thing then? Like, if the tariffs aren't here to stay, like, doesn't that just like negate everything that we're talking about, right? Like, then we're just back to like better tariffs and better trading, right? All around, it's a good thing.
It negates what you're talking about, because you're saying that these tariffs will lead to a long-term positive impact by driving more American manufacturing. But
You're
it negates
right, yeah.
that long-term positive impact. So all that these tariffs are doing are causing short-term pain.
Okay, but like, if no matter how you look at it, right, it's like one way or the other, right? You're either getting long-term benefits or you're getting better tariffs, right?
Okay, so
No matter what happens
so we're
here.
not getting long-term benefits, and no, I don't think it's a good idea to use tariffs as a tool to negotiate better trade agreements with other countries. I think it's a very bad tool.
What would you say is a better tool?
Well, I mean, sure, just diplomacy. But I mean, first, let me demonstrate to you why I think that tariffs are a bad tool. Let's imagine that you have a friend with like a JBL speaker that you really want. The JBL speaker is worth $10. What are you going to do? Offer your friend a $20 bill, or put a gun to the back of his head until he forcefully gives it to you?
Yeah, or are you implying that that's what Trump's doing to like these other countries, is putting a gun behind their head?
Well, like the implication here is that he's using the most abrasive means necessary to achieve an end goal, when there's significantly less detrimental means in which he could use, not only to the American people, but also for our relationships with other countries. So these tariffs are hurting Americans now and reducing the likelihood that we enter into allyships or friendships with other countries in the future. It reduces the likelihood that they're willing to cooperate with America, meaning that even if these tariffs do achieve better trade agreements, the tariffs were still very bad, just like if me putting a pew-pew to the back of my friend's head to get a speaker did achieve me getting a speaker, it was still a really bad idea for me to put the pew-pew to the back of his head.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I just let me get my words together. Sorry. Never been on live. I didn't think you were actually going to accept this. If I'm being honest, Dean, it's kind of funny.
And then like one other thing, like we know that you could achieve better trade agreements through diplomacy. Even Donald Trump was capable of that in his first
No,
term
you're
when he
you're
renegotiated NAFTA and achieved the USMCA, which was the trade agreement that reduced tariffs between America, Mexico, and Canada.
no, there's you're probably right. Like I do think there's probably better ways to go about getting like better trade like deals going on with other countries, but like to say that this is not a way, like this is not a working way and it's not capable of working, like I don't think is right either, because I think this is definitely a way, and it's
Well,
it's
like I already said in the analogy, if I put a gun to the back of my friend's head to get a speaker, that would probably work insofar as achieving the end goal of me getting a speaker, but it's bad for all the reasons that I listed. So, like, sure, I do think that us tariffing other countries will work and getting them to reduce their tariffs on us, but for all of the reasons in which I've already listed, such as sending our own country into a recession, redistributing wealth from the poor to the rich, making American consumers spend more on the bare necessities to live, and reducing the likelihood of cooperation and allyship with other countries in the future, it's still yet a very bad way to get it to work, all right? Especially when we consider the relevant alternatives of achieving the same end goal of diplomacy through trade agreements, such as the USMCA, such as NAFTA, or such as the TPP, which are multinational trade agreements and which have already existed in the past.
yeah, I'm not very familiar with that. I'm sorry. You're definitely a little bit more educated in like the lingo and the like all the very technical stuff, but no, it's definitely like it's definitely something to look at. Like we could definitely do something better, but I don't necessarily think it's like the worst thing, and I don't think it's. I think making it seem like it's a worse thing than what it really is, like,
I
is
think
not
that
right
I
either,
think that
right?
right now you're painting it to be something better than it really is, because you haven't like mentioned the fact that yeah, it is true that
Well,
these tariffs are sending our country into a recession. It is true that they're significantly reducing GDP growth. They're causing inflation. They're redistributing wealth from the poor to the rich. They're distancing ourselves from every other country on earth. And now we have the chair of the Fed, Jerome Powell, saying that all these things are true. No, it's a terrible plan. In fact, I don't know if it could get much worse. It's like we need to see reality for what it is, and the fact of the matter is Donald Trump's economic policy is terrible.
Well, I disagree, but I appreciate you
Tell
for
me
having.
why.
Sorry.
Well, you haven't given me an. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I just believe what he's doing is all around. It's better for the country. I do think that with
Okay,
like
why?
getting better trade deals with these countries, I do think that we have been getting screwed, and I do think that if we keep going down this route, we're not going to
Wait, who
be
have we
like
getting screwed by?
particularly China. China's the big one, right? That one's the
How
big
has
one.
China been screwing us?
They well, screwing us is like in a way in the tariffs, they're not reciprocal, right? We pay more in tariffs than they pay, right?
So every time we impose tariffs on China, they just up their tariffs on us. So we actually know that imposing tariffs on China is not a good way to achieve like trade deals, right? Like, for
No,
instance, in
and
2018, when Donald Trump originally imposed tariffs on China, they bankrupted American farmers because China stopped accepting our soybeans. And it got so bad that Donald Trump had to bail American farmers out by sending a $28 billion bailout bill through Congress. The only people getting screwed right now are like Americans that rely on shipments from Hong Kong, shipments from China in order to either run their business because that's where the raw materials come from, or goods that they just buy overseas through small parcel delivery. All of a sudden shipments are 245% more expensive. Small businesses are going bankrupt, and people aren't getting their packages. Why? Because of Donald Trump. Not to mention like brokering like the TikTok deal. Donald Trump was very close to successful negotiation with China insofar as us achieving 50% of ownership of this platform. When he started upping the ante in them, it is the case that they pulled out any talks of the deal. So the only people getting screwed right now are like American consumers and honestly Chinese consumers too.
and I think it's short term. Again, I think you're right. It is mostly a negotiation tactic, but like I do think that there needs to be some kind of like fairness. Like, and they do manufacture so much for us,
The
right?
way to achieve fairness is through trade agreements.
Okay, yes, but and like I said earlier, like this might not be like there's definitely something better that could have happened. Like, but I'm saying
Like
that this,
Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris had significantly better economic policy. You know, if Kamala Harris was elected, we would actually be an accelerated GDP growth of over 4% per financial quarter, according to the Atlanta Fed. But now that Donald Trump is president, we're heading towards a recession. So you had the candidate that was going to send our economy into a recession, and the candidate that was going to make it flourish. We had the candidate that was going to be good for American stock markets. Now we have a president who has posted on Truth Social about how he's intentionally crashed them. If you wanted a better economy, you should have voted for Kamala Harris. You should support the Democrats.
I just disagree with that. I don't think Kamala Harris would have been better. Absolutely
Really?
not.
So tell me.
She was vice
one of her
president.
economic
Where was
policies.
all this during Biden's term, huh?
Sure, I don't
Like,
mind answering your question. If you could answer mine, tell me one of her economic policies.
she was gonna. It was, what was the deal with like the giving out the money for the houses? That like overall in the economy, giving out that much money for people to buy houses would tank everything.
Why?
It's like printing money that we don't have.
Sir,
when you give money that you don't have,
her,
you keep printing money, and you keep giving people money that we don't have as a country. What does that do?
So her plan for her $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers to buy newly developed properties cost in total $1.2 trillion. So Donald Trump's economic policy, specifically his cuts for people making over $395,000 per year, is estimated by the CBO to cost over $5 trillion. Not to mention, when during his first presidency in 2017, the cuts that he passed specifically for top 1% of income earners cost $1 trillion. And he spent more in his first term than Biden and Harris did. He spent twice as much. And his proposed policy for his second term cost 3 times as much as Kamala Harris's. Not to mention that money wasn't just being printed out of thin air, but she actually had other economic policy, such as increasing the corporate tax rate by 7% or granting Medicare a greater renegotiating ability with private pharmaceutical companies to actually pay it off in the next 10 years. So when you tell me, oh, it's going to crash the economy because we're spawning money in, Donald Trump has spawned in more, and he has not sent it to the average Americans that need it. He sent it to the billionaires, and he has no plan insofar as how he's going to pay that off in the long term. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris did.
Well, I'm unsure. You know, like I do think you make some great points, and you might have like all your statistics and whatnot, but we'll see, right?
I don't get like the lack of confidence as it relates to the claims that I'm making, because you told me with conviction that if Kamala Harris prints $1 trillion, she's going to kill the economy. But as soon as we learn that no, she was going to pay for it over the course of the next 10 years with other policy, but Donald Trump literally wants to print around $8 trillion, all of a sudden you're unsure and we're going to have to wait and see. I just feel like that has been your brain like propagandized. Okay, you've become very susceptible to propaganda.
I just feel like everything you're saying, if it were to happen like under Kamala, like why didn't it happen over the last 4 years? Great things happen under Biden's administration, right? Like
all
she
the
was the
great
vice
things
president.
that would have like been a result of her policy.
Like, why didn't they implement some of her policies that she was campaigning for during Biden's administration when they had plenty of time to do it?
So they're never going to implement policy that a presidential candidate is running on before the presidential candidate runs. I mean, think about it. If they did, she would have just simply run on other policy. Okay?
Wouldn't that give the Democrats more confidence? Wouldn't that give the Democrats more confidence?
Brendon,
though?
I need you to listen
Right?
to me here.
Right? Wouldn't that give the Democrats more
Brendon,
confidence
I need
in their
you to
vote? There's a reason Kamala lost, right?
Brendon, I need you to listen to what I'm saying here. Every single person that's ever going to run for the presidency will only run on policy that hasn't been passed yet. If they were to run on policy that has been passed, well, then they wouldn't be running on anything new that they are going to do for this country. So when you ask the question,
it just sounds like an empty.
So when you ask the question, why didn't she run on policy that was already passed? Why would anybody run on something that's already happened? I just want you to understand like the rot that you're spewing right now. Everybody will only run on policy that they want to pass if they win the election. Like, think about it. Even Trump. Okay, I could simply ask, well, why didn't Trump pass any of the policy that he ran on in this presidential election during his first term? Okay, well, now let's just assume a hypothetical alternative version of reality where he did. It's not like he would have ran on no policy this term because he already passed it in his first. He would have just come up with new policy. That's the goal of presidential campaigns, is to think of new things that haven't been implemented yet that will make our country better.
Yeah, no, you know what, you got a point. Like, I'm not gonna say you don't, but like, I'm just saying, like, it's like if you're talking about confidence, like the American people didn't have confidence in the Democratic Party to deliver for the next 4 years. And if the Democratic Party really wanted to do something, they would have done it during Biden's administration, when VP Harris definitely could have done something.
Oh, well, they were actually the most effective administration in modern U.S. history insofar as domestic policy. Nobody did it better than them. In fact, they got significantly more done than Trump.
And that's why Harris is in office right now, right?
So the reason that Harris is not in office is because the average American associated the negative economic outcomes of the pandemic with the administration. But that's just a red herring to my position. I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I said. The Biden-Harris administration passed some of the most monumental policy through Congress compared to any other administration in modern U.S. history, even compared to Trump. Like, how about this? Let's go policy.
You're just getting your information from like where are you getting your information from? Like who's saying they're the best? Like who's saying?
So I'm getting my information from the bills passed through Congress, Congress.gov. Like, for instance, the PACT Act that invested $800 million into the expansion of e-healthcare programs, the infrastructure bill that invested $500 billion into renewing American infrastructure that created jobs and upsurged consumer confidence in the markets. Things like the Chips and Science Act, which was a multi-billion-dollar investment into American chip producers, so we could go from producing 1% of the global chip supply to 30. I mean, what did Trump do? You're telling me that the Biden-Harris administration didn't do anything. They did great, dude. Name one bad policy that the Biden-Harris administration passed,
you will beat me in a
policy
debate
that the Trump administration passed.
You will beat me in a debate 9 out of 10 times because you're more politically like you have a better grasp on political like lingo and like all these bills and stuff. Like, you're absolutely right. You will beat me in a debate because you know these things. But you'll see in the next 4 years that things will actually get done, and that's kind of all I gotta say about that.
What did he get done during his first term? He's a very ineffective president. Most of that comes down to the time he spends on the golf course and his inability to work with Democrats in Congress. Well, he left, so apparently he didn't know. So we're gonna go to move on to the next guest. By the way, guys, I'm still kind of waking up for the day.